Hello, I'm Holly Jennings. I'm with the Glasgow Guardian, and today I'm with McCabe, who is running for SRC president. Ella, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself before we get started?
Yes, of course. So hello, I'm Ella. Currently, I am the Vice President of Student Support at the SRC. I'm running for this role because I've really enjoyed the time and work that I've done this year. But I also just think it's been such a challenging year to achieve things. And, we've all ran on specific manifestos and have ideas of what we want to achieve in this year. And a year is usually a short time for that to happen, but even more so this year, just because we've had so many limitations. So I guess I'm really keen to run and push forward things that I've wanted to work on, and even just seeing the difficulty that students have faced this year, make sure that there's someone with experience of how situations have been handled this year to make sure that they're handled effectively into next year. So I guess that's briefly a bit about why I'm running. Don't know if you want me to go into a bit more of experience.
No, that's brilliant. That kind of leads on to my first question, which is what has been your proudest moment as VP from last year?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think. I think the proudest thing I'm most proud of is probably securing funding for harm reduction. I think a lot of what we do is sort of building on work of those sabbatical officers that have come before us, of other council members, of stuff that the SRC already does. But I was really, really pleased that even despite the pandemic, I was able to push forward, one main manifesto point that I had. So recently with the university, we've pushed the idea that we want to run harm reduction workshops and bring in drug testing kits. And I think there's always been a real hesitance to do awareness raising around this topic, and just for the union to be, or the university or union to be really proactive in addressing issues related to drugs and alcohol and that. So I think securing funding and getting the go-ahead for those initiatives is something I'm really proud of myself for, and really excited to see rolled out and worked on further in the next year. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, in your manifesto, you mentioned that you're looking to kind of steer away from a zero tolerance approach to drugs. Could you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So other institutions across the UK have started moving away from, the hardline zero tolerance approach, which I think is much more favourable. And instead of, criminalising students, it should be much more focused on support. And I think if you're going to penalise students, then, you have to have something, or, you have to have some sort of awareness raising or supportive mechanisms within the institution before you can really be so hardline on those topics. So I think personally they find that zero tolerance isn't a very effective approach to deal with drug problems within student populations. Glasgow is, I think, the drug capital of the UK. It's no secret that people take drugs within our student community. I think the focus should be on making sure people are supported and information is given as to how people can take it safely if they must, and we have to accept the fact that they are, and make sure that they're not scared to seek support and help, because in most cases we find that students are taking drugs in a lot of cases to self-medicate for issues like mental health issues and things like that. So I think we need to target the issues that sort of lie behind drug use and make sure that we're focusing on support within the institution and not just penalising students.
I think that's really interesting. To move away from that a little bit, so you've mentioned how you'd like to expand on the brand of Let's Talk workshops for the SRC. Do you have any ideas in mind of what you'd like to introduce?
Yeah, so I mean, I've talked a bit about how we're introducing or going to introduce harm reduction workshops. So I guess developing this new thing and realising that that's going to sit along different train the trainer programmes we already currently run, such as Let's Talk About Sexual Violence and Mind Your Mate. I was thinking these all sort of happen, not in isolation with each other, but I feel like tying them all together under one umbrella campaign branch that's sort of SRC recognisable would be really positive to sort of up how much we're sort of seen on campus and how recognisable we are, and tie together all the welfare strands of work we do. Sexual violence as well is obviously something we're expanding on, but I think it opens up so many other different options. For example, the Understanding Racism report. I think there's so much work we have to do there, and running anti-racism workshops is definitely something I think we're going to need to look at doing in the future. And I just think all these different strands and new welfare initiatives, it would be great to have them all tied together so people can look at the SRC and have a sort of banner idea of what we're doing and what all comes under that. And I think the idea of let's talk and conversation starting is a really positive way to sort of introduce those topics.
I think you touched on this in your manifesto anyway, and I'm sure you'll have seen this week, but there's been some talk on campus. I think it was SWAG who started it, who are speaking about crashing the National Student Survey because of the kind of lack of support that there is at Glasgow University for things like sexual assault, and they're demanding better policy in place. I guess if you could speak about how you want to go forward with that. I know you mentioned your manifesto, but just some more specifics would be interesting.
Yep, so I mean, I'm excited for what we in the SRC have got sort of planned, even probably in the next few months, which is the rollout of a gender-based violence module. So we run our workshops, but I know a lot of institutions this year, especially across Scotland, introduced a compulsory consent course. And I think that is something I was, really passionate about doing. And I think it's really important because people can choose to attend the workshops, but if they're not compulsory, there's so much of a gap of the student population that aren't, getting that information and like understanding what support's available and understanding important things like bystander intervention, things like that. So I think that project in the SRC will be really important, and we will be looking for the university for backing to try and roll that out. I mean, ideally, I'd love it to be compulsory at the induction stage for students coming in. But I guess on a bigger level, in terms of policy, I think the university does have a lot of work to do. The gender-based violence working group or steering group, I know when I was in the role, it took a long time for them to meet, and I think they've been working, and in the next few years in the strategy, they'll be putting that as sort of a main institutional priority. But I think the SRC will play a really critical role in those meetings and making sure that there is maintained focus within the Equality and Diversity Committees on gender-based violence and reviewing your policies, and also, well, I guess it's more related deals as well, but in the SRC, rolling out the Rape Crisis Drop-In Centre, I think that'll be a really critical thing for progressing gender-based violence initiatives. And it's really unfortunate up till now we haven't been able to do it, but I definitely think making sure that all those things, whether it be this next semester into next year, are prioritised at the top of the list within the SRC and the uni.
Brilliant. On to a slightly different subject. So you've mentioned in your manifesto the COP26 taking place in Glasgow in November. You've said that you'll ensure that the SRC continues to lobby for sustainability to be a key university policy. Obviously, sustainability can be a bit of a buzzword. So do you have any tangible policies in mind you'd really like to see enacted?
Let me think. I definitely think, there's been a lot. I know the SRC, we endorsed the Green New Deal this year, and it has a lot of specific sections that, it highlights like these are specific areas that we would like to see the university work in. I definitely think I need to be more well versed as to what all those are, but I think really interesting things and tangible targets have been, for example, reducing plastic waste on campus. And I know there are ways that I've seen that the SRC can intervene and help with that. For example, the sabbatical officers sit on different project boards for the new campus buildings, and within them there's like catering plans and projects, and we have sort of key insight into making sure, or sway into making sure that these reflect what students want and make sure that they are ambitious enough. So I guess that would be something, is making sure the catering strategies of these new buildings, are as sustainable as they can be. I know the Green New Deal focuses on making sure all campus food is vegan. So I guess I'd be really interested to see how much we could push that. So I guess if you had to highlight one thing, it would be making sure like the catering outlets are as sustainable as possible.
Lovely. Okay, and I've got one last question for you. A hot topic on campus at the moment is the SRC endorsements, following some controversy surrounding its recent advertising of private landlords. You've said that you'll ensure all promotional endorsements by the SRC are ethical. What are you meaning by ethical? What's ethical by your standards?
That is obviously a difficult question, because it's how much do you limit that? I know, there might have been less controversy, as you say, towards the endorsement of private halls outside of this year. This year's been a really difficult one, and private landlords and private accommodation has really not treated students well. Outside of this year, I don't know if it would have been as much of a contentious issue, but I guess it's listening to students as they come forward, and if there were having that option to sort of back out of an endorsement. for example, Qatar Airways and the private hall accommodations, those are ads that sort of go up without any consultation from sabbatical officers, and they kind of happen with a separate advertising team. So I think going forward, it would just be making sure there's some oversight by the sabbatical team in endorsements or advertisements that are approved, or making some policy that looks a bit into what, you know, the company values and how they treat the workers. I just think some more oversight and making sure the sabbatical team are actually somewhat involved in what's passed is needed.
Okay, well, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me today, Ella. Please make sure that you vote next week in the student elections. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, just please vote. Okay. Not even for me, just vote in general.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right.